Hey guys, tonight we begin with something you probably didn't plan for, a one-way voyage to the 14th century. You're standing at the docks of Messina, a Sicilian port city pulsing with the sound of ship bells and yelling sailors. It's 1347, the Mediterranean sun is hot, the gulls are aggressive, and there's a faint stench of rotting grain and something worse, much worse. You watch as a Genoese trading ship limps into the harbor. No fanfare, no proud crew waving from the deck. Just silence and a few limp bodies tied to the rigging like grotesque flags. You're not exactly a maritime expert, but even you know, ships shouldn't look like floating plague altars. The harbor master waves it off. He's seen worse, or so he thinks. You follow the slow unloading with mild curiosity. Crates of spices, bolts of damp silk, barrels of wine, and then the rats come out. Not the cute storybook rats. No, these are greasy, twitching, red-eyed little monsters with a mission. They scatter into the alleys toward the market square. No one notices. Not yet. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You decide to stay in Messina for a few days. There's good food here, bread dipped in olive oil, salty cheese, grilled fish, and the merchants always have a story. But something's off. By morning, 2 dock workers are dead. By evening, 10 more. You overhear someone whisper curse behind a fig stall. You think about leaving, but it's too late. You already touched the same rail, walked the same path, maybe even pet one of those scabby dogs loitering around the harbor. That night, you lie awake in a stuffy inn room, scratching at your neck. Probably a mosquito bite, or maybe not. The city tries to carry on because what else can it do? Markets stay open, priests swing incense in larger arcs, and the bathhouse starts burning lavender like it's a potion. No one wants to admit it yet, but death is in the room now, and it smells like sour milk and meat left in the sun. You watch a procession of monks walk barefoot through the street, chanting something rhythmic and somber. One holds a cross. Another coughs blood halfway through a verse. The crowd doesn't flinch. It's as if everyone's pretending death is contagious only if you acknowledge it. You try to be helpful. You hand a sick boy a cup of water. His eyes are glassy. His neck has started to swell, great black bubbles rising like poison bread. That's when you realize you're looking at the end of the world, and it's happening in slow motion. Historians still argue whether it arrived via rats, fleas, or cargo from the east. But here in Messina, none of that matters now. People start boarding up windows. Cats disappear from the streets. A merchant burns his spice stall and walks into the sea. The sea doesn't seem to mind. You run into a man named Paolo. He used to be a tailor. Now he's a gravedigger, or trying to be. Too many bodies, he mutters, digging with a spoon. His shovel was stolen last week. Too few prayers, he adds and spits. There's a girl on the hill who claims she saw an angel whisper into a corpse's ear. You go see for yourself. The angel turns out to be a crow, and the corpse still twitches sometimes. At this point, Messina closes its gates. No one in, no one out. Which is awkward because you're still very much in. The mayor orders candles in every window, as if light could scare away disease, as if anything could. One night you hear singing, a strange lilting hymn that echoes from alley to alley. You follow it barefoot on cool cobblestones until you find a group of children drawing circles on the ground with chalk and herbs. One sings about ashes, another sneezes mid-verse. They all collapse into giggles. You smile and then notice the rash on one of their arms. You take a step back. They keep singing. You've now been in Messina for 8 days. You've lost 5 pounds, developed a cough, and haven't seen the sun since Tuesday. The town bell rings more for funerals than anything else. A dog tries to bury its owner with its nose. You swear you're dreaming, but then the dream smells like smoke and rotting figs. And you remember you haven't slept properly in 4 nights. It's time to go if you can. You sneak out through a side gate. You bribe a guard with a hunk of salted meat and a bottle of fig wine. He laughs. We're all dead men anyway, he says, chewing the meat like it owes him money. You step out onto the road with blistered feet, a damp tunic, and the sneaking suspicion that you're now part of something very big, very old, and very, very wrong. Behind you, Messina burns quietly. Ahead of you, more towns, more rats, more shadows. You don't know it yet, but this is only the opening act. You're barely out of Messina when the first merchant caravan rolls by, jangling with bells and tension. Their wagons are piled high with everything from bolts of silk to dried figs, and you latch onto the back like a barnacle. No one stops you. Maybe they assume you're a servant. Maybe they just don't care. Either way, you're moving now, and that feels like progress, even if the road smells like damp wool and horse sweat. The caravan master is a leathery man named Niccolo, who hasn't smiled in 3 years and bathes even less. He tells you he's heading north, through Naples, past Florence, all the way to Avignon. Spices, he says, like it's a religion. Cinnamon, clove, saffron, they pay like gold, and they smell nicer than death. His laugh is the sound of papyrus tearing. You ride beneath olive trees and through orange groves, and for a moment things feel almost peaceful. The sun dapples your face, the breeze smells like thyme. Then you pass a roadside shrine, flowers long wilted, candles melted into puddles of wax. A child's doll leans against the stone, its face scorched, one eye missing. The moment unravels. At the next village, things look normal, too normal. Bakers are selling bread, women are washing clothes in the stream, children are chasing chickens. You notice no one's making eye contact. Everyone's avoiding the inn. Niccolo won't stop. Too quiet, he mutters, means someone's already dead and everyone else is pretending. Historians still debate whether the plague spread faster through seaports or land routes. But to you, riding past shuttered houses and fields, left fallow, it's obvious. Trade spreads death faster than sermons. You think of the silk you're sitting on, rolled up like a serpent, beautiful, deadly. A few days later, a man riding toward you collapses mid-gallop. His horse bolts. The man twitches on the ground like a fish, foaming at the mouth. No one moves to help. Niccolo spits and keeps riding. You glance back. The man's fingers are already black. That night, you sleep beside a hay cart and dream of boats drifting on dark water, their sails made of skin. You wake up coughing. The caravan reaches Naples, but the gates are shut. Guards yell down from the walls, voices hoarse. No entry, not unless you bleed clean. Niccolo tries to bribe them. A sack of cumin, a bolt of damask, no deal. They toss down a loaf of moldy bread and tell him to move on. You chew it anyway. Hunger's a better motivator than manners. You skirt around the city's outer fields, where half-harvested wheat waves in the wind like yellow flames. A farmer waves at you from a distance, but when you wave back, he lowers his arm and pulls a cloth over his face. By now, the other travelers are dropping off. One man leaves in the night. A woman stumbles into a creek and doesn't come out. A boy with a wheezy laugh stops laughing entirely. You start to feel like a shadow riding among shadows. You reach a hilltop monastery. The monks agree to let you rest, but only outside the walls. They pass bread through the gate using a long wooden fork. We pray for your soul, one monk calls, but not with our hands. They let you sleep in a shed beside the goats. The goats don't mind. One of them eats part of your sleeve. You thank it for the company. In the morning, you wake to bells, not church bells, but funeral ones. The sound rolls down the valley like thunder trapped in iron, one toll for each body. You stop counting at 50. You think about how far the disease must have traveled by now. North, south, inland, back to sea. It's not a rumor anymore, it's a rhythm. By now, your caravan's down to 3 people and a donkey with trust issues. You keep moving north, avoiding cities, sleeping under trees. The nights grow colder. You trade a ring for a boiled turnip. You learn to steal figs without looking guilty. You begin to smell like someone else's past. At one point, you pass through a hamlet that seems untouched. Flowers in the windows, bees buzzing over herb gardens. A child waves from a fence post, cheeks flushed with health. For a moment, hope rises in your throat. Then you spot the warning sign, a red X painted on every door. Inside, the homes are silent. You hear a cough behind a wall and keep walking. Later, you meet a group of pilgrims. They carry crosses, wear sackcloth, and mutter prayers between sobs. One offers you a piece of blessed bread. It tastes like ash, but you eat it anyway. It's the closest thing to comfort you've had in days. That night, you catch your reflection in a pool. Your eyes are darker, your hair is tangled. You look like someone who's seen too much, and you have. The road forks. One path leads toward Florence, glittering in the distance like a promise. The other toward a monastery rumored to be free of death. You flip a coin. It lands on its edge. You go left. Florence rises from the plains like a jewel someone dropped into the dust. From afar, its domes shimmer, its towers reach skyward, and you almost believe this might be a city untouched, a safe place, a fresh start. But as you get closer, the illusion begins to crack. The first sign is the smell, an oily cocktail of sweat, incense, and something foul clinging to the breeze. You tell yourself it's just the river, or the tanners, or your own travel-worn socks. Then you see the fires, not joyful fires, pyres. At the gates, the guards wear masks stuffed with herbs. One of them eyes you and mumbles something to his companion. You catch the word straniero, foreigner. You're waved through, but not before they douse your boots in vinegar and toss a handful of rosemary into your hood. You thank them. They don't reply. Inside the city, the chaos is choreographed. Merchants still sell, bakers still bake, lovers still quarrel, but everything's slightly off beat, like a play missing half its cast. You pass a painter furiously working on a mural of Saint Sebastian with extra arrows. A woman stops him mid-stroke to request he add a few to her husband for realism. You're lucky, or unlucky, enough to find lodging in a cramped house near the wool market. Your host, a widow named Isabetta, believes in strong wine and stronger opinions. If death's coming, he'll find me drunk, she laughs, pouring you a goblet of something that smells like regret and burns like betrayal. That night, you sit by the window and listen. Florence hums like a sick animal, too loud, too restless. Somewhere in the distance, a bell tolls. You lose count after 8. The next morning, you join Isabetta at the market. Everyone wears masks, some elegant, some grotesque. One man's nosepiece reaches down to his chest. Keeps the bad air out, he tells you proudly, before sneezing into a basket of leeks. You overhear 2 scholars arguing near a fountain. One blames the stars. The other blames Jews, cats, and garlic in that order. You try to edge away before they ask your opinion. Historians still argue whether anyone in Florence truly understood what was happening. Was it divine punishment, cosmic imbalance, a miasma of decay? Theories bloomed faster than bodies fell. The only certainty was uncertainty. You explore the city in wide loops, avoiding alleyways that reek of vinegar and despair. The churches are full, some with prayers, others with corpses. One priest has taken to baptizing people directly into coffins. Efficiency, he says. In the artisan quarter, things are slightly brighter. A few workshops still hammer and chisel. One sculptor offers to carve your likeness for a silver coin. Before your face forgets itself, he explains cheerfully, you decline. You meet a doctor, well, someone who calls himself a doctor. He wears the infamous beaked mask and robes thick enough to smother a wildfire. He waves a stick to keep distance and recommends you carry a dead toad in your pocket to rebalance your humors. You smile politely and back away, pocketing the toad anyway, for luck. One evening, as the sun bleeds into the Arno, you find yourself watching a strange procession. Not priests, not flagellants, children, singing again. That same rhyme, that same unsettling cheerfulness. Ring around the rosies. You don't need to hear the rest. You've heard it in Messina, in the fields, in your dreams. Isabella falls ill. She insists it's just the wine. She's wrong. You stay by her side for 3 days, changing cloths, burning herbs, murmuring prayers you only half believe. On the 4th morning, she's cold. Her eyes are open, staring at the cracked ceiling like it owes her an explanation. You help carry her to the edge of the city. The graveyards are full, so you leave her at a common pit. A man takes her name and offers you a pebble. Place it under your tongue, he whispers. Keeps your soul tied down. You do it. Florence is making you superstitious. You return to the house. Her wine is still on the table. The cup smells like grief. The next day, the street is empty. You wander aimlessly, footsteps echoing off stone. A cat watches you from a rooftop, eyes glowing. You wonder if it's the same one you saw in Messina. It blinks. You blink back. You meet a young scribe named Matteo, too skinny for his robes, too hopeful for his own good. He's writing a chronicle of the plague. Someone has to remember, he says. You ask him why. Because forgetting is how we let it happen again. You think that's wise. Then you notice his hand trembling. You don't say anything. You stay another week. Each day feels like a borrowed minute. The air gets heavier, the city grows quieter. The painter finishes his mural. Saint Sebastian now has 12 arrows. It looks personal. One morning you decide it's time to leave. You don't know where you'll go, just away, before the silence swallows you whole. As you cross the bridge, you look back one last time. Florence is still beautiful, still doomed, still pretending, just like you. You walk north along the Arno, your feet blistered and your thoughts muddy. Florence fades behind you like a half-remembered dream. Ahead, the hills ripple green and gold, dotted with villas that once echoed with laughter. Now they creak with wind and vacancy. You pass an abandoned vineyard. Grapes hang heavy on the vines, untouched. A goat wanders through the rows, bleeding at nothing. You consider taking a few bunches for yourself, but then you spot a scarecrow slumped over like it died trying to scare something off, and failed. You move on. At a crossroads, you meet a traveling musician, or what's left of one. His lute has only 2 strings, and his eyes are the color of dust. Still, he offers you a song. You sit and listen. It's in a language you don't recognize, maybe Occitan, maybe madness, but it's soft and sad and full of cracked beauty. When he finishes, he smiles and says, "The fleas dance whether we sing or not." You give him a fig. It feels fair. By the time you reach the next town, your body feels like it belongs to someone else. A leaner, dirtier, more superstitious version of you. You've taken to sleeping in churchyards, not for spiritual reasons, but because no one else dares go there. Too many ghosts, too many bones. You sleep just fine. The town is San Gimignano, famous for its towers once. Now most are draped with black cloth or silent as tombstones. You find an apothecary still open, operated by a woman who introduces herself as Lena and immediately demands to see your armpits. Buboes always start there, she explains. You lift your arms like a schoolboy. She grunts approval. You're either healthy or late. She offers you dried marigold and some powder she claims is blessed by 3 saints and a retired cardinal. You buy it anyway. At this point, placebo feels like prophecy. You help her for a few days, grinding herbs, boiling water, fetching rat traps. She tells you stories while she works, about how she once studied in Salerno, how garlic can ward off spirits if placed in your shoe, how she buried her own husband with a satchel of cloves. He always hated bad smells, she says, and smiles like it hurts. One afternoon you see a procession, not religious this time, bureaucratic. Men in robes, faces covered, counting houses, marking doors, distributing scrolls. One of them hands you a leaflet that reads, "To all citizens, maintain cleanliness, burn foul things, avoid emotion." You laugh. The man doesn't. Historians still argue whether municipal responses helped or harmed. Some cities closed their gates early and escaped the worst. Others trusted in divine will, or worse, economics. San Gimignano, it seems, tried a little of everything and succeeded at none. That evening, Lena takes you up one of the towers. You can see for miles the patchwork fields, the ribbon of the road you came from, and faintly, the next town glowing with the light of too many fires. "They're burning bodies again," she mutters, more to herself than you. "Better than burying." She asks if you're heading that way. You say maybe. She nods. "If you do, take this." She hands you a bundle wrapped in linen. Inside is a charm, a bone carved with what might be prayers or might be teeth marks. You don't ask. You wear it around your neck. You stay 3 more days. You start recognizing the birds by sound. You begin to appreciate silence not as absence, but as survival. You stop jumping when someone coughs, unless it's twice in a row, then you run. Lena falls ill, no warning. One moment she's berating you for spilling time, the next she's curled in a corner muttering about the sea. You do everything she taught you, burn herbs, wash cloths, keep the air moving, but you know, you've seen it too many times. She dies in the early morning, eyes open, mouth forming the start of a question. You dig her grave yourself. The earth is stubborn. So are you. You leave the town without ceremony. The towers watch you go. The wind pushes you onward. You travel alone again now, with Lena's charm swinging gently against your chest and her powdered remedies rattling in your satchel. You think maybe you'll write all this down someday, if paper survives, if you do. You pass a road marker. The next town is Siena. You hesitate, then turn toward it. The world keeps getting quieter. You approach Siena just after dusk, when the sky is the color of old parchment and the birds have stopped pretending things are fine. The road narrows between hills, winding through olive groves that smell faintly of sap and salt. It should be peaceful, but you've learned better by now. Peace is usually just the moment before the screaming starts. Siena's gates are open, which you've come to learn is a bad sign. Towns that care about survival keep their doors shut. Towns that don't, well, you step through the arch and feel the temperature shift. Not in degrees, but in mood. The air hangs like a held breath. The streets are clean, too clean. Someone's been scrubbing. That's never a good omen. You pass a fountain where no one drinks, and a bakery where the loaves are lined up but no one's buying. The scent of rosemary bread makes your stomach growl, but you keep moving. Hunger is less dangerous than hope. Eventually, you find a small square where a few people are gathered around a statue of a saint. Not praying, just standing, staring. One of them turns as you pass. Her eyes are glassy, distant. "He didn't save us," she says softly. You don't ask who. You already know the answer is none of them. You find shelter in an old stable behind what used to be a tavern. The horses are long gone. What remains is straw, the kind that rustles when you breathe. You curl into it like a guilty thought and sleep with Lena's charm pressed to your chest. In the morning, a man offers you a job. Not the good kind. He's collecting bodies. You've done this before, but it doesn't get easier. Still, coin is coin, and you're tired of trading memories for moldy apples. The bodies in Siena are different. Not just more numerous, they're arranged, stacked with care, wrapped in linen, sometimes even with tokens placed at their feet. A ring, a ribbon, a note. It's like the city is trying to grieve properly, as if elegance might stave off decay. You work beside a boy named Taddeo. He's 12, speaks like a 70-year-old, and carries a doll he insists belonged to his sister. She said it was magic, he whispers. You ask if it worked. He shrugs. I'm still here. You haul corpses into carts, cover them with quicklime, and follow the slow procession to a field outside the city. Each time you pass the same fig tree, you notice it's blooming. You can't decide if that's comforting or rude. At one point, you drop a body, and its hand lands on your foot. You don't scream. You haven't screamed in weeks. Instead, you murmur an apology. Taddeo pats your arm. They don't mind, he says. They're listening for angels. You meet a nun named Sister Agnese. She runs what used to be a school but is now a hospice. She wears 2 veils, one for modesty, one for safety. Her eyes are kind but exhausted. You help her boil linens and pour vinegar across the floors. It won't stop the pestilence, she admits, but it helps me sleep. She tells you Siena is trying something new. Isolation wards, airflow tunnels, herbal smoke. She sounds almost hopeful. Then a cough from the next room interrupts her. Neither of you looks. Historians still argue whether Siena's attempt at public health made a difference. Some records show fewer deaths. Others say the numbers were simply undercounted. But you count with your hands, your nose, your dreams. You stay a week. You lose track of the days as they blur into each other like spilled ink. You forget what silence used to sound like before it meant someone just died. Then one morning, the hospice is quiet. Too quiet. You check the beds. All are empty. Sister Agnes is gone. Taddeo is gone. Only the doll remains, propped neatly on a chair, like it's waiting for recess. You walk out into the street. No birds, no carts, no footsteps, just the creak of shutters and the breath of wind through empty alleys. You decide Siena is no longer a city. It's a ghost trying to remember how to be alive. You leave through the southern gate. No one stops you. You're not sure there's anyone left to. You walk until your legs forget how to hurt. You pass olive trees, fig trees, and one stone bench carved with initials. Someone loved someone once, probably before the coughing started. You reach a stream and wash your hands, not because you think it will help, but because the act of scrubbing still feels holy. That night, you sleep under the stars, which are brighter than you remember. You whisper a name, not yours, not Lena's, just a name, any name, just to hear one again. By morning, you've decided to keep walking, not for any grand purpose, but because staying still feels like surrender. The road winds into the hills, each turn offering another hazy village clinging to the slope like it forgot how to let go. You pass through one without stopping. No one greets you. The doorways are open, but the windows are blind. Your stomach aches. You haven't eaten since the heel of bread you found under your blanket 2 nights ago. You chew on wild sorrel and drink from a muddy puddle, telling yourself it tastes like tea. It doesn't. Then, like some morbid joke, you stumble onto a feast. A courtyard, tables set for 20, platters of roasted meat, bowls of fruit, pitchers of wine still beaded with condensation. Everything untouched, everything perfect. You hesitate, then take a seat. You eat like a ghost at someone else's banquet. As you tear into a roasted fig stuffed with almonds, a dog appears from under the table. Mangy, one ear missing, eyes like melted copper. It stares at you. You toss it a bone. It doesn't move. A sign hangs over the courtyard gate. Welcome, weary traveler. You laugh. Then you notice the candlelight hasn't flickered since you arrived. No wind, no flies, just food and silence. You leave before sunset. You reach a crossroads with a shrine, a broken saint, a basket of herbs, a handwritten note that simply says, "Leave nothing behind but breath." You tie a thread from your sleeve to the fence and keep going. As twilight deepens, a familiar scent hits your nose, smoke and lavender. You follow it to a cluster of tents in a clearing. A fire crackles, voices rise in song. You think you've found a traveling troupe. Relief pulses in your chest. But they're not performers, they're flagellants. Men and women dressed in white robes, backs streaked with blood, faces locked in fervent grimaces. One beats a drum slowly like a heartbeat trying to remember its rhythm. Another holds a crucifix taller than you. They march in a circle chanting Latin phrases that taste of ash and guilt. You watch from the trees. Their leader is a woman with wild eyes and a voice that splits the sky. "Repent, bleed, cleanse the world with your stripes," she cries, swinging a whip with methodical grace. Her back is a map of pain. Her hands tremble, but not from weakness, from belief. Someone notices you, a boy, maybe 16, eyes too old for his face. "You should join us," he says gently. "It's the only cure." You decline. "You're already marked," he adds. "Why not mark yourself on purpose?" You tell him you prefer your scars accidental. He smiles like he understands, then turns back to the circle and lifts his shirt. You leave before the sound of leather on flesh becomes a lullaby. Historians still debate whether the flagellants spread more plague than they prevented. Certainly they spread fear. They were banned in some cities, welcomed in others. To you, they feel like a choir composed entirely of guilt and bruises. That night, you sleep in a barn with a goat who won't stop staring at you. You name it judgment. It sneezes in your face around midnight. You take it as a sign. At dawn, you follow the sound of bells. Not funeral bells this time, but cowbells clanging in the mist. You find a shepherd, alive, surprisingly cheerful, sitting on a rock playing a flute. He offers you a crust of cheese and a story. "They say the Pope built a moat of fire," he says between bites, "sat in the middle with his gold and his God, and waited it out. Smart, eh?" You ask if it worked. He shrugs. "He's not dead yet, but he's in Avignon. That's far from here, far from everyone." The shepherd shows you a shortcut to the next town, Bologna, if the road signs aren't lying. You thank him. He waves with a hand missing 2 fingers. You walk. You walk because it's what you do now, because staying means dying, and dying means rotting, and rotting means you failed to outrun the stink. On the edge of a vineyard, you see a scarecrow made of bones, someone's idea of a joke or a warning. You nod to it and keep moving. By nightfall, the stars look closer, like they're leaning down to watch. You whisper names to the dark, names you remember, names you've forgotten, names you might have invented just to make sure someone's still listening. You reach Bologna under a sky smeared with pale clouds and the faint blush of dawn. The city's outline rises slowly. Church towers, stone walls, red-tiled roofs, hunched like tired shoulders. There's movement at the gates, not chaos, but control. Armed guards stand by with long poles and longer expressions. You've seen this setup before. Quarantine checkpoint. The guards don't speak at first. They hand you a wooden paddle with a list of symptoms etched into it. Fever, swelling, delirium, darkness in the extremities, excessive sneezing, vomiting black bile. You look at the man next to you. He checks all but one. He's turned away. You, however, are let in. A spritz of vinegar on the boots, a slice of garlic to chew, which you swallow whole, and a whispered warning, "Don't touch anyone." Comforting. Inside, the city is quieter than Florence, less mournful than Siena. It's clinical, You pass couriers in waxed cloaks, scribes with ink-stained hands, and masked officials who carry long scrolls and short tempers. The city feels like it's balancing on the edge of a scalpel. You find lodging in a small student house near the university, or what's left of it. Most classes have been canceled except for anatomy, because there are plenty of bodies to study now. One afternoon you meet Tommaso, a medical student who smells like rosemary and burnt linen. He's dissecting a plague victim under a canvas tent. You hesitate. He waves you over with a grin that has no business being that friendly next to a corpse. "Want to see what panic looks like in the lungs?" he asks. You say no. He shows you anyway. He's obsessed with data, with patterns, with what he calls the mechanism. It's not magic, he insists. It's not punishment. It's a process. If I can understand it, I can stop it. You admire him. You also take 3 steps back every time he coughs. Historians still argue about how much early doctors understood. Some believed in miasmas, bad air. Others suspected contagion, touch, breath. A few guessed about fleas, but no one guessed right often enough. Tommaso gives you a job, transcribing death records. Names, dates, locations, sometimes short notes. Died singing, died laughing, died holding hands. You start collecting the odd ones. There's a poetry to it in a way that makes you want to cry and laugh and vomit simultaneously. You attend a city council meeting, not by choice, but because you happen to be sweeping the floor when it happens. The mayor is pale, the bishop paler, and the rest look like half-melted candles in expensive cloaks. They argue about burial fees and food rations, but mostly about fear. You can smell it on them. They announce new rules: no public gatherings, no touching hands, no funerals with more than 4 mourners. The bishop adds, no singing louder than a whisper. The mayor nods like this is reasonable. Outside, Bologna adapts. Bread is passed through windows using long forks. Lovers blow kisses from balconies. Sermons are shouted from rooftops. A barber offers contactless haircuts, which consists of yelling advice at your scalp. One day, you see a man release pigeons into the square. Each bird carries a scroll. Letters to the dead, he tells you. Someone should read them. You write one that night. Not to anyone you knew, just to someone. You tie it to a featherless bird and hope it finds a sky. That evening, Tommaso collapses, mid-dissection. He tries to stand, makes a joke about overexposure to bad poetry, and passes out. You help carry him to the hospice. He's burning with fever. You sit by his side for 3 days. He mumbles theories between shivers, something about bile ratios and plague behaviors, and how rats aren't just decorative. You hold his hand despite the rules, despite everything. On the 4th night, he goes quiet. You check his pulse. Still there, barely. He wakes on the 5th day, looks around blearily and says, "I dreamt the Pope was riding a flea." You laugh harder than you should. He survives. Not everyone does. You leave Bologna quietly, without a proper goodbye. The city has its rhythm now, a cold, meticulous one. You don't fit inside it. You're not looking for order. You're looking for something else. Maybe the end, maybe the middle. Maybe just a place that doesn't whisper when you walk by. You take the northern road, following the sun like it owes you money. The road north from Bologna is drier than you remember. Cracked earth, brittle grass. Even the trees look like they've given up trying to provide shade. You follow it anyway because there's nowhere else to go. Your feet know the rhythm by now. Left, right, don't think, don't look back. Just keep moving. You pass a trio of pilgrims wrapped in sackcloth, dragging a wooden cross. One is singing a hymn. Another is barefoot, bleeding from both heels. The third is clearly dead, but the other 2 haven't noticed or don't care. You nod to them. They nod back. Well, 2 of them do. You walk faster. By midday, the heat is brutal. You stop at a stream to drink and spot a child watching you from behind a bush. His clothes are too big, his eyes too sharp. You offer him bread, he takes it, then vanishes. You don't follow. That's how fairy tales start. As the afternoon wanes, you hear laughter. Real, human laughter. Not the kind that borders on screaming, but the honest, belly-shaking kind. You follow it and stumble into a meadow where a group of children are playing a game. A circle, spinning, singing. You freeze. Ring around the rosy. You've heard it before. Messina, Florence, Siena. Always this song, always this circle. The lyrics are different each time. New cities, new names. But the melody is the same. Sweet, sinister. They see you. One girl breaks from the circle, walks right up and offers you a daisy. You look tired, she says. You take the flower. You're too stunned not to. Her mother appears moments later, smiling but wary. She invites you to stay the night at their farm. You hesitate. Kindness has become suspicious in this world. Still, your legs agree before your mind can object. The farmhouse is small, clean, and smells like garlic and comfort. Dinner is soup, thin but warm, and a crust of bread softer than anything you've had in weeks. You try not to cry. The family has survived by isolating themselves completely. We haven't seen another soul in months, the father explains, eyes flicking toward the window. Just the singing sometimes, far off. You don't tell him what that means. You've learned not to. Their son, Pietro, shows you his collection of bones, not human, thankfully. I bury animals when I find them, he says proudly, then dig them up and name them. You ask what the chicken skull is called. Justice, of course. You sleep in the hayloft, wrapped in a blanket that smells like time and safety. The stars blink through the cracks in the roof like they're gossiping about you. You whisper back, just in case. Historians still argue whether these rural enclaves, tiny pockets of humanity tucked away from the trade routes and main roads, were safer or simply lucky. Some escaped the worst of the plague. Others vanished completely, leaving behind nothing but scorched earth and nursery rhymes. In the morning, the family gives you a boiled egg and a string of dried apples. For the road, they say. You thank them twice, then a third time, just to be sure. As you leave, the little girl calls after you, "Don't let the song catch you." You don't look back. You walk past fields overrun with thistles and wild onions. A scarecrow waves in the wind, except it's not the wind. You don't investigate. Eventually, you come upon a ruined village. Burnt walls, shattered carts, a well choked with ash. You poke around cautiously, half expecting a trap. Instead, you find something stranger, a book nailed to a doorframe. It's a ledger, names, dates, and a final entry, no one left to write. You sit on the step and read it twice. Then you add your own name, just in case. Further down the road, you encounter a merchant with a single cart, pulled by a donkey that looks like it's halfway to sainthood. The merchant offers you salt in exchange for stories. You give him 3. He gives you a pinch and a smile. You'd be surprised what survives, he says, pocketing your words like coins. That night, you build a fire, not for warmth, but for company. You sit by the flame, chewing on apple slices and thinking about the song, the rhythm of it, the way it spreads like the plague itself, mouth to ear, ear to memory, memory to myth. You hum it quietly, just once, just to get it out of your head. Ashes, ashes, you fall asleep before the line ends. Morning comes with fog, the kind that rolls low to the ground, like it's trying not to wake anything. You rise slowly, your joints creaking like a church door. The fire has long gone cold. You check your pack. Still got the apples, the salt, Lena's charm, and your increasingly suspicious optimism. You walk until the fog lifts, and the first thing you see is color. Bright red, blue, yellow, billowing like smoke ahead. As you get closer, you realize it's cloth. Flags, banners, capes, and people marching, chanting, bleeding. You've found them again, the flagellants. But this group is different, organized, synchronized. Men and women of all ages, walking barefoot, whips in hand, backs already raw. They chant in Latin, but with a rhythm that feels less sacred and more rehearsed, like a dance routine at the end of the world. You step off the road and watch from the trees. Their leader is a gaunt man with a crown of thorns, not metaphorical. He carries a book too large to be practical and reads from it between flagellations. The sins of the fathers, the rot of the cities, the worms beneath the throne. A woman in the crowd collapses. No one helps. She's dragged to the side and left beneath a tree. You wait until the last whip cracks and they disappear down the road before you approach her. She's alive, barely, eyes flickering. You offer her water. She drinks without thanks. Her mouth is bloody. They promised it would pass if we suffered enough, she whispers, but it just watches. You ask what? She doesn't answer. You leave her a blanket and walk on, faster than before. You reach a town called Cremona, or what's left of it. The gates hang crooked. The town square is empty. The well is dry. A single bell rings, but you can't find the rope. Inside the church, someone's lit candles, hundreds of them. They burn low and flicker like they're scared. The pews are empty except for one man at the altar, playing a lute with only one string. His voice is weak but steady. You sit and listen. He sings of plague brides and black bouquets, of lovers who dance with bones and priests who marry shadows. It would be beautiful if it weren't terrifying. You stay until he stops. When he looks up, his eyes are milky, blind. Still listening, he asks. You nod. Good, someone should. You offer to help him out of the church, but he refuses. This is where the stories are loudest. You leave him there among the candles. Outside, you find a mural painted on a crumbling wall. It shows the dance of death, skeletons and kings, peasants and priests, all holding hands in a ring. But someone's added new figures, children, midwives, bakers, all smiling. You wonder who painted it. You wonder if they survived. Historians still argue about the danse macabre, whether it was art, warning, or coping mechanism. To you, it feels like truth. Everyone dances eventually. That night, you take shelter in an old granary. It smells of mold and grain dust. You lie on a bed of straw, arms crossed over your chest, as if preparing for a funeral that no one else will attend. You dream of a masked doctor dancing with a skeleton in a ball gown. They spin across a marble floor, laughing as the ceiling cracks and falls in slow motion. You wake up to a sunrise so red it feels accusatory. You head east. The road takes you through farmland abandoned mid-harvest. Sickles still hang from stalks. Baskets sit half-filled. A child's toy lies beside a scarecrow with no head. You find a farmhouse with an open door. Inside, silence, dust, and a diary. You read it slowly. A woman wrote it, Chiara. She was hopeful at first. "We're far enough from the city," she wrote. "We've stored food. We'll wait it out." Then, "My brother left the gate open." Then, "Mother is coughing." Then, "No more ink, no more time." You bury the diary under a stone by the well and whisper her name. That evening, you pass a man on the road playing a flute to a pile of rocks. He doesn't stop when you greet him. He just nods and keeps playing. You keep walking, grateful for the melody. You hum it for the next 5 miles. The days start blending together. The road is just more dirt, more stones, more silence. Villages blur by like faces in a fever dream. You stop looking for signs of life and start scanning for signs of recent death instead. Smoke, flies, open doors with no footsteps inside. You start talking to yourself more, not out loud yet, but inside your head, like there's an echo chamber growing in your skull. You even give it a name, Survivor You. Survivor you is more practical, less sentimental, doesn't flinch at bones, doesn't mourn every diary entry. You're not sure you like Survivor you, but they're getting things done. Eventually, you arrive at a town on market day. Yes, actual market day. Baskets of vegetables, pots of honey, a man roasting chestnuts over a fire, people walking and bartering, laughing even. You blink like someone opened a curtain too fast. The town is called Bergamo. You hesitate at the edge, worried this is a hallucination or worse, bait. But everything seems real, controlled. A woman with a ledger records who enters and exits. A boy patrols with a bell, calling out the hour and a rhyme about hand-washing. You're handed a cloth to tie over your face and a stick of mint-soaked charcoal to chew. Keeps the death vapors out, the guard explains. You nod and obey. You don't want to ruin whatever spell they've cast here. The town has rules, strict ones. Everyone must carry a small pouch of herbs. No one touches coins directly. Transactions happen using tongs or slingshots. The mayor speaks only from his second-story balcony. Children draw circles around themselves with chalk and stay inside them like obedient little monks. You find lodging in a communal barn where people sleep in rows, feet to heads, with vinegar-soaked cloths hanging from the rafters. It smells like rot and flowers and hope. You sleep better than you have in weeks. The next morning, you're woken by song, not the creepy kind. Real singing, harmonized, soft, almost holy. You follow the sound to a group of women sewing burial shrouds in a courtyard. They sing as they stitch, and somehow it feels like a spell keeping death at bay. One of them waves you over. Her name is Marta. Marta teaches you how to sew badly. You prick your fingers more times than you can count. Pain means you're still here, she jokes, handing you a cup of nettle tea. You drink it. It tastes like boiled grass and defiance. She tells you Bergamo prepared early, closed gates, burned contaminated clothes, started their own herb gardens. We learned from watching others fall, she says, without gloating. Now we hold. You help dig a trench for a new water line. You haul bundles of firewood. You patch a hole in a roof with an old cloak and a prayer. You don't talk much. You just do. And it feels almost normal. Then a traveler arrives. A man from Milan, pale, sweaty, eyes darting like he owes the air an apology. He collapses before reaching the center square. Everyone freezes. The guard with the ledger steps forward. She doesn't speak. She just points. 4 men in waxed cloaks carry him away. No one follows. Marta sighs. We'll know in 3 days. You stay, you wait, you help sew. Historians still debate whether early containment efforts actually worked, or if some towns were just lucky. Bergamo, in your eyes, is a fortress made of stitching and suspicion. On the 3rd day, the man dies. Quietly, no outburst, no swell of buboes, just silence. The guards burn his clothes, his cot, his blanket, and then burn the ground beneath them. No one speaks of it again. But things shift. You feel it. A hesitancy, a tightening of the smiles. A girl stops singing halfway through a tune and never finishes. You decide it's time to go. You say goodbye to Marta. She hugs you without hesitation, which breaks you a little. She slips you a packet of dried lavender and a slip of paper. If you make it to Venice, find my cousin Amelia. Tell her I still dream of orange trees. You promise. As you leave Bergamo, you don't look back. The road bends east toward the lowlands. You pass a sign half buried in ivy. It reads, "Here was once a town." Nothing else. You find a broken cart with wheels still spinning in the breeze. You find a pile of shoes beside a riverbank. You find a letter pinned to a tree. If anyone lives, tell them I was kind. You tell the tree she was, and walk on. The land flattens as you approach the marshes. The air grows thick, not with plague, but with dampness, with insects. with the faint green scent of rotting reeds. This is the Veneto now, where the world feels like it's melting into water. You trudge forward, boots squelching, the hum of mosquitoes in your ears, the heat sticking to your skin like a wet sheet. You're heading to Venice, not because it's safe, no place is, but because it's the last city people still talk about like it might be surviving. The city of merchants and masks, water and wealth, disease and denial, and maybe, just maybe, a cousin named Emilia who dreams of orange trees. But first, there's the lagoon. A fisherman rows you across a stretch of water for the price of a joke and half a garlic bulb. Venice doesn't sink, he tells you with a wink. It just forgets to float sometimes. His boat is named Second Wife. You don't ask about the first. As the city appears, rising from the mist, it doesn't look real. Domes and bell towers drift above the water like hallucinations. Everything reflects. Everything shimmers. It's beautiful and somehow terrifying. The city doesn't smell like a graveyard like others you've passed. It smells like salt, sewage, and secrets. The gondoliers row with long poles wrapped in cloth. The bridges are watched by guards in white cloaks. People peer from behind shutters with expressions you can't name. The fisherman drops you off near the arsenal and rows away without saying goodbye. You thank the water instead. At the gates, you're stopped. Not by soldiers, but by a doctor. He wears the full costume, beaked mask, wide-brimmed hat, leather gloves. He doesn't speak. He hands you a tablet with a list of questions written in 6 languages. You point to your answers. No symptoms, no contact, no cough. He nods, draws a circle on your wrist in blue ink, and waves you through. Venice has its own rules. You're assigned a sector, a canal you may not cross, a time you may leave your lodgings, a bell that signals curfew. The city is a grid of sound and silence, life carefully portioned out like rations. You find a room in a crumbling palazzo that smells of mold and lemon oil. The landlady is old, sharp, and has a dog that might be stuffed. Don't ask questions, she warns, especially about Thursdays. You agree immediately. During the day, you walk the canals, memorize your permitted quadrant, learn the sound of each bell. Some signal prayer, some signal fire, some signal death. One bell, small and silver, rings only once per day. No one tells you why. You look for Emilia. You find her on the 3rd day in a herbalist's shop tucked under a stone archway where the walls drip and the air tastes like cinnamon. She wears no mask, only a sprig of rosemary behind one ear. When you mention Marta and the orange trees, she doesn't cry, but her hands stop moving. She still sings? She asks. You nod. She smiles and it looks like it hurts her whole face. Good. She always had the better voice. You tell her Marta is safe, for now. She gives you a bottle of oil and says nothing more. You don't ask what it's for. Emilia tells you things about Venice. Where to buy bread that isn't mostly sawdust. Which bridges are safe after dark. Which windows might open if you sing just right. She also tells you about the island. Historians still argue whether Venice's quarantine island, Poveglia, was effective or merely a floating grave. Emilia calls it a place the living visit only once. You ask if she's been. Once, she says, I came back. You never ask what she saw there. You can guess. One night, the lagoon rises, not a flood, just enough to lap against the steps to remind the city who's boss. You walk alone beneath the arches, the sound of water licking stone like a whispered warning. You see someone rowing toward the square, hooded, silent. You hide. You've learned when not to be seen. Later you hear music, a harpsichord, muffled but sure. You follow it rooftop to rooftop until you find a window cracked open. Inside, a woman plays by candlelight. Her hair is white. Her fingers move like smoke. You don't interrupt. You listen, then leave before the final note. The next day, the square is covered in feathers. No birds. Venice is like that. You decide to help at a dockside hospice. You carry buckets, boil sheets, whisper comfort to those already halfway gone. One man asks if he's in heaven. You lie and say yes. He smiles, then dies. A nun blesses you afterward. Her breath smells of cloves. You do not belong here, she says. You don't argue, neither does the city. The longer you stay in Venice, the more it feels like a dream, wrapped in velvet and vinegar. The kind of dream where you're constantly waiting for something to fall. A chandelier, a coin, a breath. The city floats, yes, but not peacefully. It floats like a secret trying not to be told. You move quietly now. You've learned to match the pace of the place. Slow, deliberate, almost theatrical. Every glance behind a curtain could be a performance. Every mask might be a doctor, a merchant, or a corpse propped up in greeting. On your 6th day, you're recruited, without being asked, into helping with the cathedral crypts. You're sweeping floors when a monk gestures to you with 2 fingers, says only, "You'll do." You follow. The crypt is cold and damp, lit by flickering lamps that cast more shadows than light. The walls sweat. The air is thick with incense and the smell of old stone and older secrets. The task is simple: move the bones. You don't ask why, you know why. They need room for more. You work in silence with 2 others, an old woman who hums hymns under her breath, and a boy too young to be so good at stacking skulls. The monk oversees with detached serenity. Make them neat, he says. Even in death, we honor symmetry. The piles grow. You find yourself developing rituals. One small prayer for every femur, a whispered name for every jawbone. The boy makes up backstories. This one was a poet. This one fell into a canal. This one stole grapes. You nod. It helps. One afternoon, the old woman stops mid-stack and just sits. "I used to believe the dead spoke to us," she mutters. "Now I think they're just waiting for us to join the conversation." You leave early that day. That night, you walk through St. Mark's Square, nearly empty now, but for gulls and echoes. You hear laughter, brief, sharp, gone too fast. A man in red darts across the far end, dragging a sack behind him. No one follows. You don't either. Back at your room, the landlady's stuffed dog is wearing a different ribbon. She won't tell you why. She just grins and says, "He's in mourning." You nod. You've stopped asking. You see Amelia once more. She gives you a vial of oil and a sprig of thyme. "Rub this on your temples," she says. Not because it helps, because it feels like it might. You thank her. You don't tell her you already ran out of hope 3 cities ago. Historians still puzzle over Venice's crypt management, how a city of water handled a mountain of death. Records say bodies were sent to the islands. Locals say many never left the crypts. You know at least 100 never did. You stacked them yourself. On your final day in the city, you attend a funeral by accident. You're passing a side canal when a gondola draped in black glides by, flanked by 2 others bearing lanterns. No music, no words, just the slap of water against hull. Inside the boat, a single figure, wrapped in red silk. No priest, no mourners. You bow your head anyway. That evening, the bells ring 13 times. No one explains. No one has to. You light a candle and set it afloat in a bowl. It spins once, then tips. You pack. You leave Venice before dawn, the streets slick with mist and memory. The city doesn't say goodbye. You don't expect it to. Cities don't cry. They just forget you slowly. You take the North Road again. Your boots squeak. Your satchel is lighter. You've left something behind, but you're not sure what. You pass a man selling masks by the roadside. He offers you one for free. You take it. It's plain, white, expressionless. You carry it in your hand like a question. That night you sleep beneath a ruined arch and dream of a ballroom filled with bones in ball gowns. They dance until dawn, then vanish as the sun rises. You wake alone. You hum the melody from Venice's funeral gondola. It's the only tune you still remember. You keep walking. The road north turns gravelly, then muddy, then just gone. You're walking through fields now, guided by broken fence posts and the occasional boot print that doesn't look too old. Your legs ache in that deep, hollow way, like your bones have decided they'd rather be elsewhere. You tell them they're out of luck. It's colder here. The air has bite. The sky keeps threatening to snow, then changing its mind like a hungover god. You pull your cloak tighter and adjust the herbs tied to your belt. The mint is nearly dry. The rosemary's gone brittle. The lavender still smells like hope. You keep it close. You pass through a small hamlet. No sign, no name, just 5 stone houses and 1 smoking chimney. You knock on a door, out of habit. No answer. You check the others. Empty. Then you see them. 5 shallow graves behind the church, each marked with a carved stone, initials only, nothing more. You stay the night anyway. There's bread in one of the houses. Stale, but not moldy. You eat it slowly by a cold hearth and imagine the people who once lived here. You give them names. You always do. You figure if no one remembers them, you might as well try. In the morning, you carve "Still Walking" on a flat stone and place it beside the others. It feels like honesty. You move on. Midday, you find a monastery, or at least what used to be one. Its walls are scorched, its bell tower collapsed, but someone is still there, an old monk with wild eyebrows and a limp that clicks like a metronome. He doesn't ask your name, he just says, "Hungry?" and hands you a boiled egg. You stay with him 2 days. You help rebuild part of the garden wall. You carry water from the stream. You listen as he mutters prayers in a language you don't recognize, maybe Latin, maybe Greek. On the 3rd day, you ask if he's alone. He says, "No." You don't ask again. He tells you about the stars, how they've shifted, how he keeps a map on the ceiling of his cell, how one day a new one appeared right above the bell tower, just before it fell. Coincidence, he asks, eyes twinkling, or cosmic punctuation? Historians still argue whether celestial events during the plague were recorded or invented after the fact. You decide it doesn't matter. Sometimes people just need stars to mean something. Before you leave, the monk gives you a smooth stone etched with a spiral. A reminder, he says, that the way forward is rarely straight. You carry it in your palm for the next 10 miles. You begin to notice the rats again. Not in swarms, not yet, but one here, one there, watching, waiting. They don't run from you anymore. They know something. You try not to take it personally. You arrive at a village where people wear bells. Tiny ones, on sleeves, around necks, sewn into hats. You ask why. A woman whispers, "So the angels don't forget us." You nod. You don't ask how that's working out. The local priest blesses you with a feather dipped in vinegar. He tells you not to worry. Only half the town died. The lucky half, he calls them, then laughs for too long. You leave him talking to a cat in Latin. You spend the night in a loft full of hay and stories. A boy tells you about a man who came to town with a wheelbarrow full of bread and disappeared by morning. He left 1 loaf on each doorstep, he says. You ask if that really happened. The boy shrugs. We all ate, didn't we? The next day, a woman sings to you as you walk by. Just 1 verse, just 1 line. If you see the crows fly low, don't sleep near the fire. You don't know what it means, but you don't sleep near any fires for a week. Soon the village is thin. You walk through woods again. Snow threatens every morning, then retreats. Your breath hangs longer in the air now, like it's reluctant to let you go. One night you find a letter nailed to a tree. It reads, "We made it to the mountains. We're building something. If you're reading this, come." There's no name, no map, just an arrow carved below. You follow it. The arrow leads you into the forest. Not the friendly kind with chirping birds and sunbeams slanting through the trees. This forest is older, wetter, quieter than it should be. The moss muffles your footsteps. The branches lean too close, like they're listening. Somewhere in the distance, an owl hoots, then immediately regrets the attention. You follow the arrow, then another, carved into bark, etched onto stones, marked in ash along fallen logs. Someone wanted to be found, or at least remembered. You sleep beneath a spruce that night. The wind groans in the treetops, and the stars blink like they're trying to stay awake. You wrap your cloak tighter, hold the spiral stone in your palm, and dream of empty cities filled with footsteps that aren't yours. In the morning, you find the gate. It's wooden, makeshift, and flanked by 2 torches still smoldering from the night. Beyond it, a clearing and people. Not many, maybe 30. Men, women, children, all bundled in wool and movement. No one speaks at first. They just watch as you step through, the gate creaking shut behind you like it's deciding something. Then a man steps forward, thick beard, weathered face, eyes like winter. "Name?" he asks. You give him one, yours or someone else's, it doesn't matter anymore. He nods. "We're not a town," he says. "We're a pause." You don't ask what that means. You'll learn soon enough. They put you to work immediately, chopping wood, boiling water, reinforcing the outer wall. No one here is idle. That's how they've survived, by moving faster than the silence. At mealtimes, they sit in circles. No long tables, no sermons, just quiet conversation, the passing of bowls, and one rule: no talking about the past unless it helps someone sleep. You find yourself listening more than speaking. There's a woman who used to be a candle maker in Verona. Now she weaves nets for catching snowflakes. A boy who plays with beetles and claims they're smarter than people. An old man who wakes up at dawn to whisper to the trees. He says they're older than death. You meet a man named Raphael who sharpens every tool as if it might be the one that saves someone. You help him one afternoon. He teaches you to listen for the song of the blade. "Metal sings when it's ready," he says. You nod, pretending to understand. Later that night, you hear it. You think. There's no chapel here, just a circle of stones where people leave offerings. A feather, a seed, a poem scratched into bark. You leave your cracked vial of lavender. You whisper Amelia's name. You hope it finds her. One night, someone brings out a fiddle. The sound is raw, almost feral, but it's music, real music. People dance, awkwardly, barefoot, laughing like it's illegal. You watch at first, then join. Your legs remember, so does your heart. Survivor, you even smiles. Afterward, you sit with a girl named Clara. She's maybe 12, wears her hair in braids, and carries a slingshot she's named Mercy. She asks if you've seen the plague. You tell her yes. She asks if it looked like a person. You pause. Sometimes. She nods. "I think it wears different faces. Some days it's my shadow. Some days it's a noise." She looks up. "Some days it's me." You don't know what to say. She hands you a pine cone and walks off. Historians rarely mention places like this, half real, half hoped for settlements that blink into existence in the margins of catastrophe. But you found one. Or maybe it found you. Days pass. You start sleeping better. You joke again. You eat meals without rationing each bite. You stop counting the dead in your head before falling asleep. Then the birds return. Just a few at first. Sparrows, finches, bold little things that land on rooftops like messengers. Then come the bees. Then the green shoots pushing up through the frost. You wake one morning and smell spring. It doesn't feel possible. but it's here. And so, slowly, life begins to rehearse itself. The clearing hums with new energy. Babies cry, dogs bark, someone paints a sun on a wall. Raphael starts building something that looks suspiciously like a bathhouse. You help. And for a moment, just one, you believe this might be a beginning. Spring stretches its arms across the clearing like it owns the place. The snow melts reluctantly, revealing patches of green like bruises healing. The trees begin whispering again, but this time it's not warnings, it's gossip. The birds return with opinions. Bees stumble from hiding like hungover pilgrims. The wind still bites, but it doesn't mean it anymore. The people of the clearing move with a different rhythm now. They still wake early, still work, still glance toward the tree line every now and then. But there's humming, whistling, someone paints flowers on a bucket. Clara braids feathers into her hair and names her slingshot's twin, Justice. You spend your mornings rebuilding a roof with Raphael and your evenings learning to knit from the candle maker, who now uses squirrel hair for brushes. Necessity is the mother of innovation, she says, holding up a scarf that could double as armor. One day, a traveler arrives. Not sick, not starving, just tired. He's from the west, he says, from a village that's rebuilding. There are others, he tells the group, sipping broth by the fire. Scattered, quiet, waiting. A map appears. Not on parchment, but drawn into dirt with a stick and a fingertip. Dots, paths, stories. It's not accurate, but it's true. You stare at it long after everyone's gone to bed. Something stirs inside you, a thought, a question. What if you keep going, not just to survive, to connect, to gather, to carry forward? You spend that night lying beneath the stars, no roof, no walls, just sky. It's warmer now, the frost doesn't bite so hard, the stars blink approval. You wonder how many others are looking at them right now, wondering the same thing you are. You wake before the sun and walk to the stone circle. You leave your spiral stone there, beside the pine cone Clara gave you. You whisper a thank you to the monk, to Marta, to Lena, to all the names you spoke and the ones you never learned. You whisper your own name too, just to remind the trees. You tell the clearing you're leaving. No one stops you. They give you a bag of hard bread, dried berries, a new cloak sewn with symbols. Clara punches you on the arm and says, if you see the plague again, spit on it for me. You promise. You pass through the wooden gate. It creaks behind you, but it doesn't close. You walk through fields brushed with wildflowers. You see a deer and don't flinch. You cross a stream and don't shiver. You reach a hill and look back. The clearing is gone. But the birds are still singing. And the sky still smells like morning. And for the first time in a long while, your feet don't feel like they're running away. They feel like they're going towards something. You keep walking. Because there are still stories to collect. Still people to find. Still silence that needs naming. Still ashes that might grow roses. Still life. You've walked a long way tonight, through the echoing alleys of Florence, the silent crypts of Venice, the muddy fields, the fire-lit towns, the songs that sound too much like nursery rhymes. You've felt the plague in every breath, in every empty village, in every whisper that might have been someone's last. But now the journey slows. You lie down finally, the world hushes, the road stops moving, the birds settle into their nests, the trees stop rustling, and even the wind takes a breath. You've made it to the edge of something, past the hardest miles, past the heaviest silences, past the cities that tried to hold themselves together with incense and singing and salt water. You've heard the bells toll one by one. You've watched the fires. You've named the unnamed. And now you rest. You feel the weight of your pack beside you, the dried herbs, the stitched cloak, the spiral stone, now only a memory in your palm. You hear laughter soft and far away, like it's coming from the next hill over, waiting for you tomorrow. The stars above blink slower now. They're no longer watching, they're just keeping you company. The moon doesn't need to explain itself tonight. It simply glows. You breathe in. The air smells like moss and something older, like parchment left too long in a box under the stairs. And you realize for the first time in a long time you're not just surviving. You're continuing. Let the road sleep now. Let the cities drift into memory. Let your breath slow, let your muscles soften, let your eyes close. You're safe. You're still here. And that's enough. Good night. End of script. Sweet dreams.